Welcome to the Story A Day podcast. This is Julie Duffy from storyaday.org, encouraging you to be a writer every day, not someday. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Julie here from the Story A Day podcast. This week, as we come to the end of another year, calendar year at least, I wanted to ask you how your writing is going, and I'd love to hear back from you actually. So if you come to storyaday.org/podcast, there's a little widget that pops up there, and you can either record a little video response, audio response, or just use it to send a text message to me. And I'd love to hear how you're feeling at the end of the year, and looking forward to next year. I think when we're making end of year plans and looking back, sometimes it can make us feel really good because you look back and you say, oh wait, I wrote 20 short stories this year, or oh wait, I actually started writing again this year, or hey, I got my first acceptance in 20 years this year. So looking back at the year can show you things that have gone well, that can buoy you up. Or if you're just like in a really good mental place, the end of the year review can be like, okay, so let's build on it. Let's go forward. Woohoo, new year energy. Great. The problem comes in, of course, when you're not in that space. If your energy's dragging a little bit, if you're a little bit down, it can be really easy to start focusing on all the negative stuff or questioning why we're even bothering. You know, there's so many people on this planet and everybody has thoughts and feelings, and so many of us are writing. It seems like, especially once you start getting into writing again, you suddenly notice all the other writers. So it can seem like, who am I and what do I have to say anyway, and what's the point? So I want to talk a little bit about that today, because you have words to say, you have thoughts and experiences that only you have had. And on those days when it feels like you have nothing new to say, or who would listen to you anyway, I want you to consider the numbers. You don't have to write something that everyone will love. You have to write something that will satisfy you. And I don't mean quality-wise, I just mean that it will give you that sense that you're doing what you were put here to do. You feel good when you're writing. You feel more connected to yourself when you're writing. So, talking about numbers, you are one person who's getting a benefit from your writing. Therefore, your writing is not worthless. If it makes you feel better to write, think about the people that you connect with every day. It might just be 5 people in your house or on a Zoom call that you connect with. And if you have written and feel better, that's 5 people who you've influenced with your smile and your positive lightness that has come from doing your writing. So there's 5 people. If each of those people only interact with 5 people that day, and they've been influenced by your good mood because you were writing, there's 25 people that you've helped by sitting down and writing, whether or not you get published, whether or not anyone pats you on the back for it, whether or not anybody ever reads what you wrote. Now consider that if you have one reader, that one reader, their day is made better by something that you wrote. They are going to go out and interact, even if they only interact with 5 people, and those people only interact with 5 people in a day. The happiness that you've brought to that one reader is going to ripple out to 25 people again. Now consider what happens if you have 10 readers, and each of them only interacts. You make their day a little bit better, and each of them only interacts with 5 people. That's 50 people who've had lightness brought to their day because you did the work to sit down and write and to put it out there. And if those 50 people interact with 5 people, there's 250 people whose days have been in some way improved because you had the humility to sit down and write and let it come out however it comes out. And then you had the humility to revise it. And then you had the hope and humility to put it out there and let it find its readers. And even if it only found 10 readers and made a little bit of a difference to their day, there's 250 people out there now who've been affected and whose days have been probably made better because somebody else was in a better mood because they read your writing. So let's not get caught up in the question of what's the point. First and foremost, you deserve to write. It makes you a better person. It makes you who you are. But do not discount the ripple effect of you doing your work. So how do we go beyond this as a theory? Well, I think one of the first things that's really good to do, something that Julia Cameron was onto with her morning pages, is that it helps to get your mind in a place where you remember this. So beyond the morning pages, which is a little bit of a loose description of what you should do when you sit down to write, I think it's helpful to make sure you do some targeted journaling. Like if you felt at all inspired by what I just said, write your own version of that. Think about the negative aspects of what will happen if you don't write. You'll be grumpier, you'll feel frustrated, you'll have regrets, you might take it out on your cat who might bite your kid, who might, think about go to whatever ridiculous lengths you want to think about the negative consequences of you not doing this. And then write the good version. What if I do write today? What are the possibilities? What if I write something and it really flows and it sparks an idea for a novel and I get to work on that novel and blah, and I get to go out and I'm happier when I go downstairs, and then my spouse is happier and they go to work and they're nice to their boss and their boss sees them as a better person and they get promoted and we get rich. You can go however you want, but keep it you can also keep it on a very personal level. I will be able to do these things. Like everything else in my day will be easier if I sit down and write. So the morning pages thing, sure, before you start writing, I would encourage you to journal, but journal in a targeted way that reminds you of the possibilities. If you do this thing, is it worth writing? Is it worth setting aside your fears and your insecurities for a moment in order to get all this good stuff, in order to feel connected to yourself, to give yourself the best shot of having a good day, to potentially have that ripple out to so many other people? Is that worth it? I think that's worth getting over our insecurities for. You do have stuff to say, and you, as an individual who has never come before and will never come again, deserve to be the best version of yourself. You deserve some writing time. You deserve to connect with that part of yourself, regardless of whether it's going to ripple out or not, but it will ripple out. So you're the first person that you get to influence positively if you do your writing. Something else that makes it easier is to commit to some kind of schedule, not a onerous schedule, not 2,000 words a day, not a story a day, maybe one piece a month, maybe one piece a week. And the best way that I have found to commit to that is to make it public. So every year I run the Story a Day Challenge, which means that every year I have to pull together 31 writing prompts and put them out there. And you know what? Since I've started making that public the very first year in 2010, I have managed to do that. The first year actually I didn't intend to do writing prompts every day and I didn't do 31 writing prompts in that year. But since then, there have been 31 writing prompts on the site in May, come hell or high water. And sometimes it has felt a little bit like hell or high water. And sometimes I was writing the prompt at midnight the night before. Not so much these days. I've learned that that's not a great way to operate. But, because I made it public, it's out there. One of the things I've noticed, I don't know if you've noticed all these Substack newsletters that are going around now, where writers write on this Substack platform and it gets sent out and you can subscribe to their newsletters, and a lot of people will subscribe and there's a monetization aspect of it. So you bung someone $50 a year and they commit to sending you something every week. So I've done that with a few people just to see how it's going, and a few people that I would follow anyway. And what I've noticed is that they write every week because they've committed to doing that, and people have forked over cash. And some weeks it's not the stuff I really signed up for. Some weeks it's not the fiery rants about the on-topic stuff that I expected from this person. Some weeks it's just a more personal reflection. And I'm kind of okay with that because I know I'm going to get something from them every week. And I'm getting to know them a little bit. So from a reader perspective, I don't really mind that I'm not getting exactly what I expected from this person every week. And from a writerly point of view, I suspect that they're fretting a little bit every week because they've committed to writing something. And that's why some weeks I am getting the more personal reflection. Here's what I've been up to this week. Here's how it's feeling, instead of the point by point essay that you might expect from them, or you might see in a polished piece in a more traditional publication. Most of the people I follow, not all, but most of them also write for more traditional publications, and you get these very polished pieces from them. And it's kind of interesting to see these other pieces coming out of them. And I think it's just the fact that they've committed to writing something every week. They have to come up with something, and they're doing it. So there's a certain value in simply committing to doing something, whether it's every week or every month or every day. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that one, even though I run Story a Day. Wouldn't recommend tying yourself to every day unless you're absolutely that kind of person who knows that a streak is very motivating. Usually those people, there's a certain personality type. Jerry Seinfeld does that. Tends to be fairly high-achieving people with linear thinking brains. Not all of us have those, and a lot of us need to change up our routine from time to time, or we start to feel like we're in prison. So committing to some writing, I find monthly goals helpful because I rebel against constraints. So if I'm on a fiction push, I will have a monthly word count goal rather than a daily word count goal, because that works better for me. I can take 2 days off and come back to it and write on a binge, and it works fine. So making some kind of commitment and then making it public really, really helps. You can use the Swagger group at Story a Day to do that. The first of every month, I post. There's a post at the site which allows you to post in the comments and say what you're going to do, and come back the next month and tell us how you got on. If you want something more regular than that, you could do something like, publish something on a blog every month or every week. But if you want real accountability, you can find a buddy. If you don't want to be publishing your stories publicly on a blog, which means, of course, that they're publicly published and you can't then submit them to things that want first rights, then find a friend and commit to some kind of buddy relationship with them where you say, I'm going to write X pages this month on this project, and I will email you when it's done. Or even you can even email them the pages. You don't have to. You can simply have that, I did it, good for you, let's move on kind of relationship. But making it public and making sure that if you do that, make it a friend who's not going to let you off the hook. So maybe somebody you're not that friendly with in real life, but someone you've met through an online community. Someone who's got a little bit of a different personality than you. I can think of several people who I could do that with, who I probably wouldn't call up just to chat, but I can think of, I could commit to them that I was going to send X amount of pages, and they would be like, come on, Julie, where are the pages? Where are the pages? Where are the pages? So find friends like that, as well as your people you can pour your heart out to. This is something that Austin Kleon talks about in his book, Share Your Work, which is a great little easy to consume book with lots of pictures in it and lots of wisdom in it. He's talking about the process, sharing the process behind the work is great for building an audience, and it is. So, but I don't want to put any more pressure on you to share work that's not ready publicly, but you can talk about the process. You can share other stuff. And I think if you commit to doing something on a regular schedule, it creates a freedom that doesn't exist if you don't have a structure. And I am someone who rebels against structure, but I committed to doing this podcast every week, and mostly I do, unless there are extreme circumstances. This podcast comes out every week and I find something to talk about. And every week somebody tells me it was helpful, and it might just be one person. But every week someone tells me that they're glad I made the podcast. Having the structure of knowing I need to have it ready for Saturday morning makes it easier to get it done. So I just encourage you to think about, if you're planning ahead for next year, not to set ambitious goals if that doesn't feel right. If that feels right and inspiring, then go for it. But if you're kind of I'm looking at next year, and I've been quite ambitious over the past 5 years, 6 years, and I've had quite ambitious goals, and I've met a lot of them. And the goals I've made have always been about the stuff I can control. I haven't set, early on I set goals like have a book deal. And then I realised that was a stupid goal because I don't control that. The goals that work are the ones which are about my output, and my focus. So this year I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling like making ambitious goals. But I'm thinking that sticking with publishing this podcast every week is probably one of the things that's going to be on my list. There might be some other output that goes on my list that is regular, because I've discovered the freedom that comes with having a regular schedule without it being too rigid. So a monthly in-depth writing post at the blog seems like something I could do. A weekly podcast. I've got ideas for other content that I want to make for the Story a Day specifically. And of course I've got my own writing to do as well. But I think it's going to be okay to just think on a more personal level about the writing I do and why I'm doing it. Not from a career point of view, because we tend to conflate those things too quickly, but just to think about it on a personal level. What's it going to do for me if I write X times a month, or if I write X words, or if I finish these projects? What's it going to do for me? What's it going to do for the people I live with? What's it going to do for one reader or 10 readers? And if I can find a way to be okay with that, and if you can find a way to be okay with that, I think we're going to find that we're much, much more productive, much happier, and that we start to find a bigger audience. Something to think about as we wind down the year 2021. This episode will actually go out on January the 1st of 2022. So I hope that you had whatever kind of New Year's celebration that you wanted. And I hope that you got some sleep, and that today is full of possibility, as every day should be. And that you're not overstressing yourself with perfectionism as this new year begins, but that there's possibility and light, and that you will come over to the blog and leave your goals for the year, for the month, and that they feel good to you. Keep writing. If you want to learn to write, don't read another book or article. Start writing. I'm here to invite you to consider the Story a Day 3-day challenge. It's a challenge and a workshop that gets people writing and completing stories in just 3 days. And it works. I'm fanatical about getting more and more diverse stories into the world, and I think yours should be among them. If you're feeling the pull to write or level up your storytelling, let me hold your hand through 3 days of short story writing. Check out the 3-day challenge at storyaday.org/3DC. Thanks for listening. Why not come over to the blog at storyaday.org and check out this week's writing prompts and articles. And in the meantime, have a great creative week, and of course, keep writing.